So what we're going to take a look at here is the first major turning point of the war. If you were a Union officer or you supported the Union, you would refer to it as the Battle of Antietam because it took place near Antietam Creek. And if you were a Confederate, you would call it the Battle of Sharpsburg because Sharpsburg, Maryland was closest in vicinity to the battle. Now, in the fall of 1862, Robert E. Lee decided to go on the offensive and take the war into the North. He told President Davis that the Union Army was much weakened and demoralized, and his hungry army, quite frankly, needed the food that the farms of the Potomac offered. And these are farms that are north of the Potomac, because his army has really scavenged all areas south of it. He believed that a successful invasion would propel the slave-holding Maryland to the Confederate cause and demoralize enough voters that Lincoln might be forced to change policies. He had also hoped that a successful Northern campaign would aid in convincing the British and or French to recognize the Confederacy and offer assistance. However, most Marylanders didn't really have an interest in joining the Confederacy because those who believed in secession had already left to go to Virginia. They were already fighting for the Confederacy to begin with. And those that remained were really not inspired by the haggard appearance of Lee's army, who were legitimately starving, many of them without shoes. Now, prior to this battle, Robert E. Lee had sent directives to his main lieutenants, with troop movements and strategy. One copy of these orders was wrapped up in a pack of cigars, and these plans fell into Union hands, so McClellan should have had the advantage. Unfortunately, Lee anticipated McClellan's movements, and the fight began on the morning of September 17th at the village of Sharpsburg near Antietam Creek. There were 3 separate phases of the fighting, and some of the most brutal were amongst not only the corn stalks, where the bayonets of the soldiers gleamed in the sunlight, but also at an area called the Sunken Road. And over 25,000 casualties still gives Antietam the distinction of being the bloodiest day in American history. Neither side was going to win, but neither would back down. The next morning, Lee fully expected the battle to resume, but McClellan went back to his case of the slows, as Lincoln termed it, and he chose not to pursue Lee. On the evening of the 18th, Lee took his army back to Virginia and ended the Maryland campaign. Now, Lincoln was furious that McClellan allowed Lee's army to return south without giving chase. Lincoln actually gave the order to follow Lee, end this thing, but McClellan refused, and he was subsequently, finally, relieved of command. Now, there are a few positives to take away from the battle. Now, even though it was a draw, the appearance of a retreating rebel force gave the impression that the Union had won. So it gave Lincoln the victory he needed to deliver his Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation drew on his constitutional powers as commander-in-chief to claim slaves as what was called contraband, or captured property. The order claimed that all slaves in rebel states were freed. So really the 4 border states, the 4 Union states that allow slavery, still allow slavery, but the message is clear. This was to take effect January 1st, 1863, and it shifted the war from something that was solely designed to preserve the Union to a crusade against slavery. And due to this shifting focus, England and France, who had already abolished slavery in their empires, really could not in good conscience support the Confederacy. So one aspect of the Confederate strategy, gain foreign support, it's going to be a failure. They will stand against the Union alone.